So we are back with our budget conversations today. We have Sheriff Darren Hall with us, and he's brought some folks that he's going to introduce. But before we do that, I just want to give a shout out. We have Councilman Bill Pridemore, who is here. He is the head of the Metro Council budget process. We also have Council Member Larry Hager has joined us. So thank you both to the council members. I'm going to turn this over to Talia. She's going to kick it off, and then we'll turn it back to you, Sheriff. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. The Sheriff's Office oversees civil warrants, correctional development, the DUI safety school, detention centers, and offender reentry programs. Their current budget is $67 million from Metro. They have about $154,000 of grants and other funding of $17.5 million. They are currently budgeted for 864 FTEs. The sheriff does not have any operating budget requests for you to consider today, Mayor, but there is a capital improvement request of $20 million that he would like to discuss with you today. $10 million is listed for FY17 and another $10 million in 18.
Okay.
Sheriff?
Sure.
I just want to introduce who came with us, our Director of Communications, Ms. Carla West, our Chief Deputy, Mr. John Ford, and our Chief Warrant Officer, Mr. John Taylor, is back here somewhere. Our Director of Finance in the Sheriff's Office, Mr. Pete Lutz, and our Chief of Administration is Mr. John Hudson. So hopefully we got all the Johns introduced.
Good to see all of you. Thank you all for making time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, as Talia mentioned, we do not have any operational improvement requests, but I thought, or I read the information to bring forward any improvements, including capital, and I just wanted to bring the formal request of something we've talked about as it relates to our next need in the Sheriff's Office. One thing I think that we need to keep in mind as a city is that the large project that's underway, or at least the stages that are underway, will accommodate a large portion of what we do. But at the conclusion of that project, there are some 200 of our employees who will not have a home to call a permanent home. We, as you know, we have moved some temporary locations, the park and the soccer fields and so forth. Those positions don't have a home when the project downtown is finished. And so I just wanted to, as we discussed and had been talked about before, formally request the $20 million, which would put us, hopefully, consolidate our operation even further once this project is complete.
So, sure. Why don't we expand on that? So you and I have had these conversations, but let's do that more broadly for the benefit of the folks who are watching. So when you talk about consolidating, what does that look like?
Yeah, presently, of course, we have a complex on the Harding Place area that has several facilities, 4 correctional facilities, 1 contracted facility on that site. And then we have presently the CJC that's going to be renovated, of course. We have a Hill building jail that we occupy, 500 inmates, and our administrative staff live there.
Because that's where the administrative staff is now.
Right, about 40 to 50 employees are in that building. We occupy a property over on South 5th Street, the old workhouse, often referred to. It's called the Jerry Newsom Center today. That is our training center, our warrant division. We have investigations located over there. A lot of different ancillary functions have called that building home for, gosh, for the last 20 years.
About how many employees over there?
I would say over 100, because you have a lot of our warrant division all parks and leaves from that building, but they're out on the road most of the day. We have a building right behind the CJC. We call it the Trial Lawyers Building. It's in very poor shape. It's an old building. I think it's coming down first, they tell me, when everything starts.
About how many employees?
Blows on it.
Right. It's not the best situation, and it's worked well, but it's time for it to go too. But I would say roughly 40 to 50 employees at various times.
Just trying to get where the 200 employees are that aren't going to be housed, where they're coming from.
Yeah, maybe a better thing. I messed up. When we tear up the downtown facility and redo the jail itself, obviously that's going to replace the jail and everything it takes to run it.
Right.
The jail that's underneath our administration building is a 500-bed jail called the Hill Building. It will no longer be needed, so that empty jail would be down the street. But our administrative building, sitting on top of it, I don't think long-term is probably the best thing, but we could still stay there as an administrative building. But the building that's being torn down behind the CJC, which is really support staff, it's our compliance division, our communications division, our We have some of the DUI school that reports to that building. It's really because we didn't have any other administrative space years ago, and that's how that kind of came to be. That building, when it's torn down, it is not being built back into the jail because it really doesn't need to be associated in the facility. So those folks are temporarily moving out to Harding Place in portable buildings, my understanding is, and that would be out on the soccer field area temporarily until this is finished. When it's finished, the jail and everything would come back downtown, but these ancillary functions that are being taken out would not have a place to go back. The South 5th Street property, which is the workhouse, this has been talked about for several years. I'm not sure what the long-term plans for the Casey Homes issue is. My understanding is that's something that the city wants to look at for better use for the property that we're on. We could obviously continue to stay there. The difficulty, it's a really good building for us. It's an old jail, and we use it for training purposes. It's the only standalone training center in the country that's accredited by American Correctional Association. It's a fantastic opportunity for us to use for training. Inmate labor did that work for us years ago. It's really a neat operation. The problem is, my understanding is the utilities to run that building are more than the CJC. That's amazing. It's really outdated for all the purposes that we need it for. But it serves a really valuable function. We have some 100 people out in the streets every day serving civil process warrants. They leave.
And are they housed out of that building?
Right,
Is that where they, okay.
And it's a lot of vehicle traffic. You have officers, but they come in and get their work and they take off. But it's really a hub of that. And really downtown would not be I'm talking about further downtown, would not be an ideal location for them, nor would training, because we have 50 or 60 employees in one classroom, 20 or 30 all coming to that building. So they go to South 5th Street and leave. We really didn't want that to come downtown because it really brings all of that into this inner city for us to train and have all of our employees show up here and leave. So that building, if it stays, it could, obviously we can continue to occupy it. It works fantastic. But my understanding is that the city has some ideas down the road for what it wants to do over there, and it's my opinion that we ought to include that in whatever the long-range plan for the rest of our functions are.
So I guess, regardless of what's going to happen in that facility or these other facilities, in your ideal world, the hope is that you can take those 200 positions and consolidate them somewhere.
Right.
And so the capital improvement request is to do that in some place.
Right.
But let's talk about the property out on Harding, because what's out there now, and why would that make the best case?
Yeah, I think the way I look at it is at the end of the renovation downtown, we'll have a larger piece of our operation here and nearly the other half of our operation out on Harding.
So what's out at Harding now?
Right. We would have, sitting open today, we'd have 800 beds to house inmates, males. Those are minimum security inmates today. And every female that we house is presently out there, minimum, medium, and maximum. That's about 500 beds today. We have a 300-bed facility called the Offender Reentry Center that's out there on the property for males primarily, although we're going to try to make it co-ed as we move forward. The CCA complex, which is right there on the property, is about 1,200 beds today.
And who are they housing?
Right, they're housing 1,100 males convicted. They're really prisoners in the way that I like to call it. They're convicted felons, 1 to 6 year sentences. The females that are out there, which is about 150 of them, are all convicted females, 1 to 6. That's the way the contract's written. What we're proposing in the transition is to move the remaining females, those that are across the street with us, into the open beds at CCA. Because the other women are there, that would be temporarily until we get everything done. But in the transition of this, all of those beds would need to be used in various ways. And so the facilities that are out there, when you take our staff and our inmates, and nearly half of the operation would be in Harding Place. When you finish downtown, you're still going to need those facilities to handle some males and some females when this is finished, because we really are reducing our bed population when we build this. We're doing really good things. We don't need more beds.
Right.
And so over here, it's going to be better beds, but we're still going to need those out on Harding. And so let's say that 3, 4, 5 years down the road, you would have about half of our operation on Harding and half here. The higher risk inmates are all downtown, but a lot of our programming functions will remain on Harding Place. So it's my belief that we ought to put our hub, if you will, our headquarters operation in one of those two locations, and downtown really doesn't make any operational sense because the traffic and the issues that we would need to bring all those folks in and out of the building. And so it just seems to me it's one of those two would help us. There's some cost savings in that because we would have some shared services on the property if we were all on one piece. And we'd like to be closer to the folks who work with us.
Is there a facility out there now that could be renovated? Is that what the 20 million is for? Is this to create a new facility?
What that is coming from the previous plan as to the property and what it would cost to build a headquarters. Back over a year ago, as you know, we'd looked at moving everything out there. This building itself, which houses no inmates, it has no security function at all, purely administrative, was to be located on that property at the time. And so I was using, in the estimate, using the cost then and the type of building that we had proposed back then, and wherever it would fit out there. It's, again...
So it'd be new?
Right.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And one of the things that has been talked about, I do not know where this is any longer, but if South Precinct is staying there or not.
I know that there's been conversations about, so could you take over South Precinct and just add on to it?
The contractors, the experts tell me it's cheaper to do what you needed to do because it's about a 20-plus-year-old building, and the roof and the infrastructure is going to cost, that's their words. I trust that they know a lot more than I do about that. And basically, to bring that building down and to put back, which is a fairly inexpensive building, this does not need to be, compared to our jails, it's not anywhere near the cost to build it. And it would fit better on the footprint of where the precinct is if you brought it down versus trying to work around it.
So it would fit where the precinct is?
Yes.
Okay, so what you're saying is that actually, in an ideal world,
Right.
that if that facility were to be thought, that would be...
From a timing perspective, I don't know if we're going to be in a position to move the precinct yet, so we may have to talk about building it somewhere else on
Okay.
the site. But I don't know.
Right, I mean,
That's something we just have to
we just have to talk about.
I know that the chief has talked about wanting to
Yeah,
move further south.
Right.
But again, it comes down to...
It's all these like moving pieces that have to coordinate.
I think the thing that concerns me is if we look down the road, let's say it's 4 years, let's say we're opening this building today and we could move everybody back. Just so we all know, we would have to leave some of these ancillary functions stuck, and I'm afraid...
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about delaying your project. I'm just saying it might have to physically fit
Right.
somewhere else on that site
Right.
rather than at the police
Right.
headquarters.
And trying to line it up, my thought is wherever it goes, try to line it up somewhere where when this opens,
Agreed.
so those other functions aren't
Yeah.
taking
We're
up
on the same
space,
page.
the
We're on the
park
same
and
page.
everywhere.
Agreed, because otherwise you're...
Right.
You're
And I think, what, Mayor, we had talked about before is why you wouldn't put those into the CJC complex. And I think the contractors project team would tell you that it would cost a
Right, I
lot more
think that's
to
exactly
add
right.
to downtown urban. Plus, you got the problem of 200 more cars coming
Right.
downtown and parking, and
Traffic.
it just sort of compounds itself. So I think since
Yeah.
we own the land, it's a
Right,
more
it's not
reasonable
I agree.
location for it.
I agree.
Probably more cost effective to do it.
I do just want to give a quick shout out because we've had some more elected officials join us. So we've got Judge Linda Jones is with us, and we also have Council Member Sharon Hurt with us. So thank you all for joining us as we continue to have our budget conversations. Talia?
No, I think I'm good.
Rich?
Yeah.
I think we're good.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank
we
you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
Thank you for making time.
Thank
Can I
you.
just ask one question about just the overall current budget? Where does these 17 other come from? 17 million?
That's the state.
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 Okay.
Is that the CCA?
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
pass-through on the
Pass-through,
CCA.
okay.
So it doesn't, there's no real money to the city.
Right.
It's just the state reimburses us for the cost of
Right.
the CCA.
It's just set aside.
It's no real money to us, is what I
Real
want to
money,
really know.
We don't get to.
Real money,
real
but
in and it goes
not going to get us anywhere. All right, thank you all, appreciate you.
Thank you.